Hey there, it's Karen here with Whiskey Sour My Bud. I wrote a blog today called What Are You Stewing Over? Nothing. Nothing's going on. There's nothing going on. Stew. It just gets a little crazy. It's been a heavy week, I will say that. I am sleeping pretty good, but my brain is kind of in rapid mode, just thinking about everything. And if I think too much, I try to read or do something, put music on, dance. I'm about 3,000 miles away from most of the things that are going on right now. I think that's what's making it a little harder. And it's a little more difficult to get away right now, just with a bunch of stuff that's going on. But I wrote this blog called What Are You Stewing Over? And I maybe should have called it What Aren't You Stewing Over? I've been enjoying reading Mark Twain lately when I feel especially detached from just kind of everything that's going on in the world. I strangely find comfort in authors from yesteryears. I tend to hurl myself back 100 or 150 years sometimes, even with certain authors that I read. And I don't know if I equate it with a simpler way of life. I don't say better, and I don't necessarily call them the golden years. I just sometimes will hurl myself back to that time period. If you see, most of my furniture and most of my my instruments are antique or old. I like really, really old stuff. I feel a sense of history and a sense of character kind of in them, so I tend to go to those things. But lately I was reading Mark Twain, and one of my all-time favorite quotes comes from Mark Twain, who he says, "A man who carries a cat by the tail learns something he can learn in no other way." You don't even have to explain that quote. You just and if you don't understand the quote, try picking a cat up by the tail. No, don't do that. That's animal cruelty. But you'll soon find out that you just messed yourself up pretty good. So, cat gets the last laugh in that one, for sure. When I was a little girl, we probably had 50 stray cats on our farm. A lot of them had names, funny enough. I know cats. I don't know a lot about a whole bunch of other things in life, but I know cats, and I knew enough not to carry one by its tail. It's a perfect example of how to gain everlasting experience, and that's what Mark Twain was getting at. What I did do, though, is I put the entire palm of my hand on a bright orange burner on our stovetop in the kitchen. Yeah, needless to say, I'm very savvy in the kitchen now. The blisters formed the same circles on the palms of my hands that you see on the burner of an oven. Awful. Awful. I was fortunate that it healed, but I'll never, ever forget it. I'm especially sensitive to children being around stovetops now, and I consider myself an authority in that matter. Gained wisdom and experience, for sure. It's really tough to watch other people go for the burner or the cat's tail and not interfere with whatever the consequences behind that. I think if I think I tend to interfere more if somebody's really going to injure themselves. It's kind of like if your child runs across the street, you're going to yell at them. You're not going to just you're not going to take the approach that they should just learn a life lesson or gain some experience with whatever the outcome is in that. That's silly. But sometimes I feel I find it very difficult to leave people to their own lessons with anything that has to do with matters of the heart. I'm continuously screwing up and watching myself fall, but there are things I have experienced which I wish I could have saved others from, and I wish that I could have stopped them from having to go through the same things. It's part of why I blog on the topic of depression and isolation and loneliness and things like that. It ruined, and I mean ruined. Yes, I've learned things from it and all those things you're supposed to say. Oh, I gained so much experience. but it really did severely ruin a good portion of my life. And so therefore, I think if I can blog and talk about it, I can perhaps, save somebody else from going through it. But I have learned that I have to try to give up trying to control these situations. And control can come either from feeling like you're out of control in your own life, so you want to control somebody else's life, or you see somebody going down that rough patch and you just simply want to save them from it, especially when they seem really out of control. You want to try to get in there. I've talked about elbowing my way in before, I still find myself looking for the solutions around me. And I try to find solutions for other people around me. It's just kind of how my makeup is like that. I'm just solution oriented that way. This heavy stuff that's been on my mind this week's been stewing a bit more than maybe usual. The problem is that I am so far away from home and I can't get back there right now. And but I still feel the emotional pull because these are my friends and this is my family. So I'll go back soon. But I need to get really clear on what my role is. And I fundamentally know. I totally understand why, or what my role is in all this, but I gotta get clear on that because I still find that control thing kind of worming its way in there a little bit. I think too, since Mom's been gone, I feel like all the cubs sometimes just kind of are either in danger or they have to fend for themselves. And but I gotta remember I'm also one of the cubs. I have to kind of fend for myself as well and find my own way. But something I can do is, without Mama Bear around, I can be alerting them to some danger. I just can't control it. Because we kind of all have to go through our own struggles, and that's what it means to grow up as a cub. Is there are a certain amount of struggles you go through. It's just difficult if you see the pride around you, right? Have full families and moms and dads and things, and they got their king at the top, taking care of the situation and taking care of the pride. So that's where the difficulty comes in, is when you see the other full prides around you. So this is all sitting really heavy with me, and I totally know the right approach, and yet I'm still filled up with kind of the heaviness of the topic, and it's because I love them so much, and I worry about them. But the problem with worry is it isn't proactive, and it isn't helpful. So it's indicative of caring, but that's about it. That's about all worry does. It just kind of eats your insides. So stewing over things back home doesn't do anything. It just makes me feel heavier. But some of the things I mentioned, like feeling like that child running across the street, some of those life lessons shouldn't end with death or what the possible outcome of the car accident that had happened or the possible outcome of the suicidal attempt that had happened. Like these are they indeed are instilling these massive life lessons, but I don't think everybody has the same bottom on. When we look at people around us, we all kind of have a different bottom if we fall. We when somebody says, "Oh, they've hit bottom," well, not everybody's bottom is the same, and that's a hard thing to wrap our head around. I need to remind myself this week that my job is to keep in touch and just show lots of love, and I have to do it from a distance right now, but I'll see them soon. The biggest thing, though, I am learning. Every day I'm always learning something. It's like, aren't I done high school? God, I hated high school. I'm so glad to be out of there. And here I am still learning. But the biggest thing I'm learning is I'm still having to give myself permission to just let go a bit. I don't have to detach myself. Life is super rough, but it's not my responsibility to steer it. So I have to just realize that there's a fine line between something being my responsibility or problem and keeping still a good grip on my compassion. And that is the balancing act. Too many people just shut off their emotions altogether in order to not deal with something, and I'm very unwilling to give up being compassionate because I felt what that feels like. There was years ago where I decided I got to take care of myself. I can't care what anybody thinks around me, so therefore if I just shut off my compassion and I shut off my caring, then I don't have that burden on me. I don't have to worry about it, and I can take care of myself. But the truth of it is that I do not want to go through life being that kind of brick wall. I like my level of compassion. So it's just finding the balance right now. And I understand how to do that. Implementing it, totally different thing. Most of us have an understanding of that. Just implementing it is hard. So I'll sign off by saying I'm wearing oven mitts around the cat. That kind of sums it up for me right now. I know the lessons. I still want to hang out with the cat. Gonna wear the oven mitts. Just because of my past lessons with the stove. A little deep, right? It's kind of weird. That's what I'm doing. I'm wearing oven mitts around the cat. Leo Buscaglia always makes me feel good. If you just want to simply feel good today, go look up that guy. You've heard me tell you guys to go look at a James O'Barr interview before. If you want to feel good and loved and important and all those things, go look up Leo Buscaglia. He, I think they used to call him Dr. Love. He's just so awesome. I've watched so many video clips of him on YouTube and stuff, and I've also read lots from him, but he had a quote today that said, "Only the weak are cruel. Gentleness can only be expected from the strong." And I think I've talked to you guys before about how sometimes we regard love as a sign of weakness, and that compassion is a sign of weakness. They say, "Oh, compassion for the enemy," or whatever. That's a sign of weakness, but it really does signify our strength. You know, I think it's really a really good thing to maintain our level of compassion and gentleness. And somebody who is gentle and just kind of keeps an even keel, to me, represent the strong people. You don't have to go out there and yell at people to get your point across. You can be gentle. And so I'm going to try to practice more just some gentleness, you know, in the matter. And some of these things that are being brought to my attention from family and friends right now. It's definitely heavy. Definitely heavy. But yeah, I like reading Leo Buscaglia, so I highly recommend if you guys just want it's some really good feel-good topics, and from a very strong, compassionate, gentle man who he's been dead for a while now. I wished he could have just lived forever. He did live to be in his 70s, but he would teach at different universities and stuff, and just do these awesome, especially back in the 70s, you'd see clips of him do these awesome conferences, and he just really makes you feel awesome. So, anywho, so that's my blog today. What are you stewing over? What are you stewing over? Enough about me, what about you? Let me know what you're stewing over. And try to ask yourself if it's worth it, or if action is required, or if worry is sucking you dry here, because that's a dangerous spot. Anywho, slithered on long enough. I'm finding my clarity in this whole week. Worried about loved ones, but I'm okay. Thank you so much again for all your condolences with my grandma's passing. Very loving. You guys are so amazing and so loving, and I'm just learning so much from you every single day. So I will sign off for today and see you tomorrow, okay? So from Whiskey Sour and me, rock on, Whiskey. Rock on.